concrete walls. There's a place for us where we could go, where we could be alone. Between city lights, we don't have to hide. I wanna go, do you wanna follow? There's something in the air, I can't explain it, but it's there. Ain't nobody gonna find us in our secret love affair. I don't wanna have to hide no more, it shouldn't be unfair. I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? I can't understand why we can't hold hands, but they don't know what we have is real love. Aren't you sick and tired of having to hide? I know a place, do you wanna follow? There's something in the air, I can't explain it, but it's there. Ain't nobody gonna find us in our secret love affair. I don't wanna have to hide no more, it shouldn't be unfair. I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow?
What's up, everybody? It's Monday night. It's time to stream. Oh, whoa! Oh no, 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 no! Hang on. Oop. Okay. There we go. Hey, welcome to the stream. Seismic, I did take those boards out of my fence specifically for the purpose of, well, some of those boards fell out of my fence, and then I took a few more out just to make room for freestyle. How'd you guys like that flying? What quad was that? You may know that I've been flying the Mr. Steel Apex build and the much, much, much less expensive iFlight Sedora SL5E. And I've been exploring. Now, I'm not going to say I made the Sedora fly as good as the Apex, the Mr. Steel build. You're never going to make Betaflight fly just like Kiss. But I spent like an hour and a half tuning that Sedora, and I think I got it flying pretty good. Although it is worth asking the question, if you have to spend an hour and a half tuning a Betaflight 4.2 quad to get it to fly pretty good, then again, I am comparing it to the Mr. Steel Kiss build, and Steel has spent like the last 6 years refining that thing, so it's not like he just like plugged it in, turned it on, and it was amazing. Anyway. David Bennett, yes. My my Apex did have a little bit of a flame problem. Let me see if I can find that for you. Hold on. You know, you get this KISS ESC, and people say the 24 amp KISS 4-in-1 is you really need a capacitor on that. And then sure enough, where did I put those flippin' files? Oh, I hope I didn't like delete them. Images. No. Oh, there's just the one. Huh. Okay. Well, anyway, I guess I'll have to find those files for you another time. I want to show you the smoky ESC. Is it in the trash? There's a trash, right? Where's the trash? Trash. Yeah, they're there. They're there. Oh yeah, they're there. I'm gonna get these photos back before I zoop. Yeah. Ow. It's bad. It's bad. Some smoke came out. I asked Mr. Seal about it, and he said that he files out the screw holes on his, and it looks like these ones were not as filed out as he would like them, or maybe not filed out at all. And he suspected that was related to why it went. I don't know if that's, I don't know what to think of that, but there you go. So, kids, KISS 25 amp ESC, definitely put a capacitor on it, I think is the takeaway. Well, anyway. Yeah, Andrew Young, I don't know what blew. Good question. I think it's this capacitor. Can I zoom in on this? I think it's this capacitor. Looks like the brunt of the problem. Like this it's scorched, but I don't think it actually, I think that's just smoke. I don't think the VBAT positive smoked. I think that the capacitor shorted. That's my theory. I think one of these capacitors failed short, and then some frying happened. I mean, I'm not an electronics expert, but that's my theory. So, but the freestyle you were seeing was the Sedora SL5E. I've got a video that will be coming soon that, get these out of the trash. I gotta get these pictures out of the trash before Google Photos gets rid of them. I accidentally deleted them, but I shouldn't have done that. Restore. There we go. Restore to my library. Okay, perfect. Yeah. When is the Jumper T18 video coming? I just recorded it today. And the big question that everybody wants to know the answer to is the Jumper T18 or the Radiomaster TX16S. And thankfully, is as out of appreciation for you fine people on my live stream, I'm going to tell you the preliminary results of the Jumper T18 versus the Radiomaster. As soon as I get... No. Eric Allen, where can you get a shirt like that? This shirt came from Quadbox. Rotor Riot Quadbox always includes a t-shirt. The t-shirt's usually pretty good. And on the back here, UFDA crew, baby. They may still be selling them. They may still be selling them. They sell the t-shirts at Rotor Riot store. KD2RDH, the Amber voice pack. I don't know. I'll tell you what, KD2RDH. Tell you what, my friend. Looking for the Amber voice pack. I don't know where it is online, but hang on. Where is OpenTX backups, T16 backups, SD card. SD card sounds. EN. This one has Amber, I'm pretty sure. Let me just share this with you. There you go. Boom. Here's a shareable link to the Amber voice pack. Enjoy. Or that's my whole EN folder. So, yeah. There you go. So, T18 versus Radiomaster. Here's the good. The Jumper T18 with the 5-in-1 module, in my testing, the 900 megahertz module performs adequately. It's not possible to do a direct comparison to FrSky R9 because FrSky R9 has 100 milliwatt, 500 milliwatt, and 1 watt, and the Jumper T18 5-in-1 module is 300 milliwatts. So there's no way to put them at the same power level. It's not possible. But I compared the Jumper at 300 milliwatts to the FrSky at 500 milliwatts, and the FrSky went a little bit further, as you would expect, because it's on higher output power, but the Jumper was completely respectable and much further than 2.4 gig. So that's the good news. But wait. The freaking hoops I had to jump through with freaking FrSky receivers. So the Jumper T18 does not bind to the R9 receiver because the R9 receiver ships with the FCC firmware on it or the EU firmware. It does not ship with the Flex firmware on it because the Flex firmware actually would not be compliant with FCC regulations. So they ship it with the FCC firmware on it, and then they let you download the Flex firmware, and then you flash it. Well, the Jumper T18 won't bind to the FCC firmware. You have to have the Flex firmware on it. So you got to flash this guy. And unlike the RXSR, this doesn't have a convenient plug. So to flash it, you got to solder it up. But then how do you flash it? Do you solder it to a servo plug? No, because the Jumper T18 doesn't have the little plug on the bottom like the FrSky radios do. No, you got to solder it to your flight controller and then use serial pass-through to flash it, which, okay, I made a tutorial about how to do that, which, by the way, I had to go refer back to remind myself how to do it. And every time I flash a FrSky receiver, except for RXSRs, which are pretty easy because you just boop, plug them in, plug it into the bottom of the radio, and go. Every time I flash a FrSky receiver, I'm like, oh, Crossfire is so much better. Because Crossfire just flashes over the air. So I get the Flex firmware on this guy, and I get it bound. Yay. And I do a range test. And it's okay. It's okay. The range is okay. And then I go to bind it to an R9 module to do a comparison test. But the Jumper won't work with the FrSky Access R9 module. It'll only work with the FrSky ACCST R9 module, and only if you update the firmware on that. Anyway, so I got it all done, and it's fine, but the thing that has me worried, and I say this in the review, but again, thank you, live streamers. Juzel, you can use the module bay pins to flash. However, you need to come up with an adapter, and the adapter would be a pain in the ass. It can be done, but it's a pain in the ass. It's way more of a pain in the ass than it needs to be, is my point. My concern is this. The Jumper T18 511 module is only compatible with FrSky R9 ACCST firmware. FrSky has started pulling down. Here's your news of the week. FrSky has started taking down their 2.4 gigahertz firmware. You know how FrSky went to firmware version 2.x? And it's not compatible anymore with pre-2.x firmware. So if you have a Jumper T16 or anything, FrSky basically came up with this new firmware version and broke compatibility. Well, okay, you just flash your receiver back to the old version and you're good to go. No, because FrSky has started taking that stuff down. But hang on, I have good news. Check this out. By the way, we're in the intro news of the day part of the live stream. I will be taking your questions. I will be taking your questions from the chat in just a little bit. If we go to download and we go to receivers, load more. Where's the RXSR? Or the XM Plus? Hello, load more. RXSR. Let's try that one. And where's the XM Plus? There's the XM. No XM Plus? Kind of strange. No? The XM? XM. Oh well. Let's try the RXSR. ACCST D16 firmware. Okay, so currently you can get the older firmware. This link is still here. There are other receivers where the link has been removed. Where's the XM Plus? Come on now. Modules. All right, well, I'm not going to spend 20 minutes on a live stream trying to find it, but suffice it to say, the link to the older firmware has been removed on some of them. One of my patrons has actually grabbed all the firmwares and put them on a Google Drive. Oh, plus was spelled out. Interesting. He's grabbed all the older firmwares and put them on a Google Drive. And if FrSky does take them down, there's the XM Plus. Is it there? If FrSky does end up taking them down, then we can get them from the Google Drive. D16 firmware. Nope, still there. Okay. Well, I don't remember which receiver it wasn't there, but someone said, I tried to get the older firmware. I noticed it was gone, and I immediately went and I just downloaded all of them. So hopefully we'll get the R9 firmwares in there as well in case they disappear. And this is, to me, one of the reasons why I'm not as excited about the 5-in-1 module and the Jumper T18 as I might be. Because even if you're okay with jumping through these ridiculous hoops, you're still dependent on FrSky to make receivers and to make the compatible firmware available to you. And FrSky has demonstrated that they would like you not to do that and that they intend to do everything you can to stop it. So yeah. Oh, and by the way, the Jumper T18 has an internal 2.4 gigahertz a patch antenna for the 2.4 gig connection. And if you need to ask whether the internal patch antenna has worse range than an external dipole antenna, then you shouldn't have to ask. It's worse. So you got worse range in 2.4 gig. You have 900 megahertz built in, which is cute, but... and then over here, you've got the Radio Master, and you could just stick a FrSky module if you want, or a Crossfire module in the Radio Master. So, I can see which way I'm leaning. But you can watch the full review later this week. Anyway, that's what's going on. What's up with you? Let's take some questions. Juzel says, hopefully the multi-module devs will reverse engineer Crossfire sooner or later. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's possible. It's possible. I mean, it's not like TBS is any nicer about people using their hardware. The TBS got so annoyed about people reverse engineering smart audio. However, it's not like they stuck some encryption on smart audio to make it so no one could do it. At the end of the day, TBS does have their customers' best interests at heart. TBS, I'm trying to think if this is true before I say it. I think that TBS almost always, if not always, has their customers' best interests at heart. Yeah, more so than FrSky, who is willing to just inconvenience and basically screw over their customers in order to protect themselves. I mean, protect yourselves if you want, but don't screw over your customers in the process. So if the multi-protocol project does reverse engineer Crossfire, whatever TBS does in response to that, I'm confident that it won't put their customers in a really awkward spot where, like, suddenly their hardware isn't compatible anymore. And that is what FrSky is doing. Or their hardware is discontinued and you can't buy new receivers for it or whatever. Drone Pilot says, I have an R9 external 1-watt module on my Tyrannus. Will the Jumper T18 accept that module? Drone Pilot, the Jumper T18 can use R9 modules, but only the older ACCST ones, not the newer 2019 Access OTA one. The newer 2019 R9 module will not work with these radios. And I tried it. That's how I know. Yeah. Squitchy says, all this talk about R9, I constantly get telemetry lost warnings on my R9 Lite and R9MM. What can I do to fix it? Flash new firmware? Like, be on the latest firmware? And then cross your fingers? I don't know. It's tough, man. Juzel says, even with ACCST firmware. Juzel, so when I downloaded firmware for the R9 module, the R9 access module is compatible with ACCST receivers, but it is still an R9 access module. Dave Bennett says just by Crossfire. Yeah, well, I mean, I will never say that, but I will think it. Here's the R9M 2019. Download. ACCST firmware, interesting. Maybe if you put the ACCST firmware on the module, it would work. Yeah, maybe. I'm gonna have to say probably. As long as that firmware stays available. No, you're right. That probably works. But then also you lose the over-the-air firmware update with the ACCST. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, this is not the FrSky R9 live stream. Let's take some other questions. William Stucker says, "Hey Josh, I know you have a video and have said it a million times. What's the best drone for a beginner?" William, the best drone for a true ranked beginner is a simulator. Buy a transmitter like the Jumper T18, the Radiomaster TX16S, a Tyrannus, a FrSky QX7 would be a fine choice. Buy yourself a controller in the $100 to $200 price range, and then just that'll be your controller for the whole rest of your life if you want it to be. You could buy a much cheaper controller in like the $40 price range just for use with simulators, but you're just going to buy a better one soon. So get yourself a controller in the $100 to $200 price range, and then practice on the simulator on the computer for between 10 and 40 hours in acro mode until you get to the point where you can fly around a little bit in acro mode with some confidence, and then and only then buy a quadcopter. Now, that is the actual truthful best advice, but most people are not going to take that advice because they're eager to get in the air. That's your call. If you want to get in the air, a good starter quad is the Emax Tiny Hawk Freestyle Ready to Fly kit. It's everything you need, including batteries and a charger, for $160. The controller on it's pretty crappy, but you can use it with a simulator. The quad is good. The goggles are okay. But it's everything you need for $160. And the good news is, if you try it and you hate it and you go, "This is not for me," you're not out too much money. If you want to get an actual like 5-inch quad, I sound like a broken record, but there you go. I've been flying the crap out of the iFlight Sidora SL5E, Cidora, Sidora. And I just continue to be super impressed with what it delivers for $200. But you'll need goggles and a controller as well, batteries, charger, etc. That's a great place to start. Go for micros, says Rohan Bansal. Yeah, micros are a fine choice if you want to go with something like a tiny whoop. It's just a different direction to go than a 5-inch. They're great for indoors. They fly a little differently. I think tiny whoops are actually harder to fly in a lot of ways than a 5-inch. I'll take a beginner on a 5-inch quad on a big open golf course than a beginner on a tiny whoop in a dorm room. See the difference? He's just going to crash a lot more in the dorm room. Yeah. Is Mobula 7 still the go-to whoop? Frosty, I would say Mobula 6 if you're in the Mobula mindset. The Mobula 6 over the Mobula 7. It's smaller, lighter, more nimble. The Mobula 7 has 2-cell battery, but I think the Mobula 6 flies so damn good that most people would not be upset that they didn't get the Mobula 7. I feel like 1S Tiny Whoops got better since the Mobula 7. 1S Tiny Whoops used to be charming and cute, but they flew like crap. And then people made 2S Tiny Whoops, and they flew better, but they were still kind of heavy, but they flew a little better and had a little more power. And then 1S Tiny Whoops got really freaking good, and I kind of feel like there's not as much point in a 2S like the Mobula 7 or the Ishin Trash Can. That's just my personal feeling. Obviously, everything has its place. I would take a Mobula 6, a Beta FPV Meteor 65, or a Newbie drone Acro-B, the new Acro-B brushless. I would take one of them over a 2S 75mm quad like the Mobula 7 any day. That's just me. That's just me. Let's see here. Any... DJ Pop says, what about Kebab FPV said that the Beta FPV little radio has like twice the range of normal FrSky radio on the SPI receivers. That would, I mean, Kebab generally doesn't talk shit. So if he said it, it's probably true, but that's astounding because, like, my understanding is the crappy range of SPI receivers has to do with, like, the crappy antenna they use and maybe the just bad sensitivity of the chipset, so I'm not sure how you could tune around that. My big problem with the Beta FPV little radio is that it only supports one model. Am I right about that? And it can only be configured using OpenTX Companion. You have to hook it up to the computer. So, a Bike Too Many is surprised by an advertisement he got as he came into the stream. I am not in charge of the advertisements you see. YouTube chooses the ads. I have no... If you saw an advertisement that bothered you, that's between you and YouTube. I'm not in control of that. So, Ed Thompson, let's get some super chats out of the way. We're like 25 minutes into the live stream. I've been babbling for a long time. Let's get some super chats out of the way. These lovely, lovely people gave their money. And by the way, 467 viewers in the stream. Here's how it works. Welcome to the streams. First of all, if you're new here, welcome to the stream. Up here on the left, this is you in the chat. All you good people in the chat. I'm going to be taking your questions. If you want to make sure that I notice your question, you can leave a super chat by hitting this $sign down here. And throw a couple bucks, and I will answer your super chat. It'll get called out here. I will definitely get to it. I almost never miss these. And these lovely people up here in the upper right saying hello to the stream. These are my patrons. Hello, Squishy7. I see you. These are my patrons on my Discord server, and I always have a special window just for them during the live streams to make them feel appreciated. They make me feel appreciated by donating on patreon.com. There's a link in the video description if you want to sign up and support me for as little as $2 a month. That's my lowest tier, $2 a month or more if you feel like I've earned it. It's totally up to you. Everybody gets the same rewards. There are no reward tiers. I mean, there are reward tiers, but the prizes are the same. It's just however much you feel like I've earned. It's just like a great big tip jar. And so far, it's all working out. So keep it up, patrons. So let's get some of these super chats out of the way. Ed Thompson, thank you for $2. Hello from Dallas. Hello, Ed Thompson. Dallas is a fine, fine city. Nathan Bose, it's a little hot some of the time, but Nathan Bozeman, thank you for $5. Super stoked to be finally on a live chat with the one and only JB. I sure hope I'm the one and only, because if there was more than one of me, I'm not sure the world could take it. MBFPV, thank you for $10. Big donation, MBFPV. Happy Father's Day, just in case I missed the stream on Sunday. It is Sunday. Sunday is Father's Day. Well, I don't have any plans to cancel the stream, but if my wife says, hey, I have a special Father's Day present for you and I'm going to need you to miss the stream, I'm going to skip the stream. You would too. Garland McNew, thank you for $2. Any plans on a Bardwell F7FC? Plans? Plans? I have one right here. Yeah. Remember when I told you guys that, like, we had an order of 100 flight controllers coming, and when they got here, we'd be doing... Well, it turns out that is just about to actually happen. Either I was wrong or somebody else... There was a miscommunication, let's just say that. I got the box that was supposed to contain 100 of these, and at first I was like, why did I get the prototypes and not Race Day Quads? Shouldn't Race Day Quads be shipping the prototypes? And then inside the box, there were 5 flight controllers, and I was like, huh, I thought there were going to be more. So now it's like, no, for real this time. So we got these prototypes coming. When they come, I'll be letting my inner circle know first. So, you know, become a patron, join my mailing list, whatever. They're going to have about 100 of these that we're going to be selling at a discount in exchange for your feedback. You're going to put it in a quad, test it, and fly it, and give us your feedback. I know a lot of manufacturers would just start selling them without testing them, but that's not how we prefer to roll. But yeah, it's coming. Daniel Carroll, thank you for $4. Any reason to go Crossfire over DJI if I buy a kit? Daniel, Crossfire has longer range than the DJI controller. Depending on your setup, much longer range. If you're running Crossfire at 2 watts, much longer range. Now you might think, what's the point of having your control link have longer range than your video link? Once one goes, you're done. But having the control link be super reliable means that you never have to think about fail-safing it. You just think about your video, and it's one fewer thing to think about. The other thing is that if your control link is reliable and you lose video, you might have the option to like punch out and climb above the obstacle. Now it's not always safe to do that, but sometimes it's safe to do that. If you're flying at a park and like there's some little kids playing soccer right over there and you lose video, don't just try to throttle out and hope the video comes back. Disarm, please. But if you're like flying in the desert and you hit a gap through a rock formation and you lose video, yeah, what do you got to lose? What, are you going to hit a cactus? So having the control link be distinct from the video link can have some advantages. The other big advantage of going Crossfire is that the OpenTX controllers like the TBS Tango, like the Jumper, like the Radio Master, like the FrSky, all of those controllers have way more capability than the DJI controller in terms of their programmability. Now that may be a negative. You may prefer simple and functional, in which case the DJI controller may be better for you. But for a nerd like me, OpenTX all the way. So, Jamie P, thanks for $3. Jake Sloan, thanks for $5. Your opinion on the DJI controller link versus the Tango 2 controller link for medium to long range and obstacle penetration. Jake Sloan, I run the TBS micro module, which runs at 250 milliwatts, which is the same output power as the Tango 2. So, and I can tell you that I have never fail-safed it until I did the 1200 milliwatt mod on my DJI. And then I was doing a range test where I flew the quad literally all the way around to the far side of a big office park. And as I was on the very far side of the office park, it fail-safed. And I was like, wow, that's never happened. So I feel like, and by the way, and my antenna, my Crossfire antenna was so crappy and effed up. So I feel like that's like, it could be way better if I just took a minute to care about my antenna. So I feel like DJI at 1200 milliwatts and Crossfire at 250 milliwatts are pretty closely matched, and they're a good pair. Frederick Bergen, thanks for $2 in the super chat. My X9D Plus is not responding in Betaflight. Frederick, this is not going to be something we can solve on the live stream. I'm going to ask you questions like, what flight controller do you have? What receiver do you have? Where do the wires go? What does your ports tab look like? We're just going to walk through the troubleshooting flowchart, but I will not make 522 viewers sit here while we do that. So email me, Frederick Bergen, email me, joshuabardwell@gmail.com, and you will go into my queue. Currently, I had a very busy day because I was working on that T18 review today, and I have not gotten to my emails yet today. And I have like 45 emails, and I'm hopefully we'll clear them before I go to bed, but we'll see. Frederick Bergen, email me. Okay. What do we got going on? Skadoosh, David Skadoosh is in the chat. Why is Skadoosh not a moderator? I'm almost suspicious. He should be a moderator. Skadoosh has been made a moderator. Use your powers wisely, Skadoosh. Joe Gray, Bad Dachshunds, you should definitely be a moderator. I make people moderator just so, not because I expect you to moderate, by the way. If you don't want to moderate, don't moderate. I don't care. I just make you a moderator because so your name is blue, so I see you in the chat. I'm like, ooh, VIP. Rohan Shah, who won the motors? No one won the motors yet because the giveaway isn't over yet. My gosh, I shouldn't care so much, but people just don't read the terms of the giveaway. I even said in the video, it's going to be a week before I announce the winner because it's going to be 4 days before the giveaway ends. People need time to enter the giveaway, and the time is not over yet. So, no one's won the motors yet. Ziggy Mike 95, thank you for $10 super chat. Just wanted to say thank you. I got my first setup, watched a couple dozen of your videos. Without you, I'd still be tinkering. Thank you, Ziggy Mike. Hope you keep that. Test your failsafe before you fly, my friend. Test your failsafe with props off in case it flies away. Joe to Gordon, thank you for a $20 super chat. That's a big one. Musicians learn complex music by playing accurately and slowly and gradually increasing tempo. I want to do this in the quad simulator. How do I slow everything down like time is slower, not just less gravity and low rates? Joe to Gordon, that's a very interesting idea. I don't know of any simulator that allows you to literally slow time down. So you should, first of all, does anyone in the chat know of a simulator that will literally just let you slow time down? And number two, if not, let's talk to the sim manufacturers and see. Yeah. Hate Eternal Maver, I don't have the join YouTube membership thingy yet. I don't. YouTube has a thing like Patreon, but I have not enabled it for my channel for two reasons. Number one, YouTube takes like 30 to 50%. I don't remember the cut, but it's a massive cut, whereas Patreon takes like 12%. So Patreon pays me more than YouTube would in terms of fees. And number two, I'm not interested in like having two sets of patrons that I have to pay attention to because I have enough time. I have so many messages coming in anyway. I would end up just ignoring one of them. So if you want to support me, join me over on Patreon, or no hard feelings if you support me some other way, but I don't have the YouTube membership thing. Wow. Okay. That was Cyan Tech says that you could probably use a thing called Cheat Engine to slow it down. I don't know what Cheat Engine is, but presumably it like slows the game down. Joda Gordon, try looking up Cheat Engine and see if you can figure that out. OCDFPV, what was Joshua's final decision on Crossfire Shot? OCDFPV, I think Crossfire Shot reduced latency. I think I can feel it. Here's the thing. If you guys are ever testing something that claims to reduce latency, here's how it has all the way back to going from PPM to S-Bus. Every time I have tested reduced latency, what happens is you fly the reduced latency and you say, it doesn't feel that different. And then you get used to it. And then if you go back to the other thing, you're like, oh, this is so much worse. You kind of don't feel latency when it goes down, but you super feel it when it goes up. So what I suggest you're doing, if you're going to try Crossfire Shot out, try Crossfire Shot and then flash the firmware back to standard OpenTX and feel the difference. And when you go back, you may feel it. Jay Larson 42 in the Discord says, I thought I heard you can go to 2-watt Crossfire when using locked 150 megahertz. How limited is the range at 250 milliwatt? Okay, good question, Jay Larson. Crossfire has three different update frequencies. One of them is 150 hertz, which is the ultra low latency, whatever, 4-6 millisecond that everybody thinks about. One of them is 50 hertz, which is a latency, I think it's around 15 milliseconds, which is still not bad. It's approximately comparable to a typical FrSky 2.4 gigahertz link. Approximately. And then there's a there's a 4 hertz, I think. 50 hertz, 4 hertz. A super low speed one that is basically, oh my God, we're about to fail safe. You can lock Crossfire to 150 hertz. And what happens normally is as you get further out, it drops from 150 hertz to 50 hertz dynamically because the 150 hertz signal has much lower range. Well, if you lock Crossfire to 150 hertz, your range goes way down. I've been doing this and trying to see how much range there is. And what I would say is that Crossfire at 250 milliwatts and locked at 150 hertz, in my non-scientific experience, has approximately the same range, maybe a little better, as a typical 2.4 gig system. So when I was flying in a car park, a concrete car park, I fail-safed Crossfire 250 milliwatts, locked at 150 hertz. I changed it from 150 hertz to 50 hertz, and I just like no fail-safe ever. But it felt to me like that was about the same as where I would have fail-safe, because I fly this car park more than once. I was testing receiver modules, and that one place where you fly and you fail-safe, well, Crossfire did it when I was locked at 150 hertz. Oh, It's Blunty. Hey, everybody. It's Blunty is the guy who has that Google Drive with the old FrSky firmwares. It's Blunty is looking for the XJT Lite module firmware, the pre-ACCST 2.x firmware. If anybody has that, like downloaded on their hard drive, can you please let him know? And It's Blunty, I'm going to make a video. Like, I'm actually going to make a video about this at some point. And I'll try and... It's Blunty, if you will get me a list of all the firmwares that you still need, I'll put that out there. Squishy7 says, I think even more important than the reduced latency of Crossfire Shot is that feed-forward now can react much stronger, since there's basically no variation in the RC signal compared to before. Yeah, Crossfire Shot reduces latency, which is a thing that is sort of right there in your face. But the main thing that Crossfire Shot really does is it keeps a very consistent signal. And a consistent signal is important for Betaflight's feed-forward to work correctly. When the signal timing changes, feed-forward thinks you're moving the sticks, and feed-forward kind of glitches out, and it can make your motors run rough. With Crossfire Shot, you can turn the feed-forward filtering way down, and there is a Betaflight preset for this to make it easier. You can turn the feed-forward filtering way down, and the sticks get much, much sharper. Whereas if you're using something like FrSky, 2.4 gigahertz or R9, the timing of the signal is much less consistent, and you have to filter the feed-forward a lot more aggressively to keep that from causing problems, which causes softer stick response. Shane Beast. What's the best... Thank you for $5, Shane Beast. What's the best 3-inch high def for freestyle, in your opinion? Do you mean high def like DJI? The Transtech Beetle really impressed me. The Transtech Beetle... I was flying the 2.5-inch, technically. I assume the 3-inch is better. It really impressed me. I'm not saying it's the best, because I haven't flown them all, but I am saying it really impressed me. Peak Ascender, if you have XJT Lite 190730, I do think that's the file he's looking for. And Peak Ascender, if you will email that to me, joshuabardwell@gmail.com, please email me that file, and I'll pass it on. Thank you very much. Let's see here. Mike Bergman has an XJT Lite, never used. Well, I mean, the XJT Lite module, I'm not sure if you can pull the firmware off the module, even if you have the module. Dave's FPV wants to know if there's anything you could change about this hobby, what would it be? I would change the public perception of the hobby that is leading the FCC to overregulate us. That's the one thing I would change, is I would make sure that there was a way for hobbyists to safely enjoy FPV and to continue to develop our own hardware and our own systems without the FAA squashing us. That's it. Nico Espana, thank you for 2,500 CLP. What's a CLP? I don't know that one. CLP. Chilean pesos. Thank you for 2,500 pesos. Love your videos, and I'm starting the hobby. I'm troubleshooting a GPS. What's the difference between S.Port and F.Port? SmartPort. S.Port is telemetry, and telemetry carries sensor data back from the flight controller to the transmitter, to the controller in your hands. So, for example, you could have the battery voltage display on the controller screen. Ever since we started having OSDs on most of our quads, telemetry has gotten kind of less important because you can just see the battery voltage in your goggles, but some people still like telemetry for various reasons. F.Port is a combination of a control link and a telemetry link on one wire. So F.Port is like a combination of S.Port and S-Bus in one wire. K. Letho, thank you for $10 in the super chat. Why does the FPV community not seem to care for Spectrum? I don't know. Commenters, what do you think? My read on it is when I first got into the hobby, I looked at Spectrum. Spectrum controllers were $500, and I was like, no, I can't spend like, if you're in the hobby, you could talk yourself into spending $500 on a controller because, like, you have a perspective on what you get for $500, but I'm like, I'm not spending $500 on a controller. Like, there's just no way. And I think that happened to a lot of people. They just couldn't. They just bought the cheap Chinese things and they never crossed over. That's my theory. When can we get an updated Bardwell's yard and liftoff? You have some new fence gaps and a new car. Maybe the fence gaps. I actually asked the liftoff devs when I bought the Mustang if they could change the car out. And they said the problem is that to put an actual Ford Mustang in, they would have to license the model from Ford. They would have to license. You can't, like, just put a Ford Mustang in a car, in a video game, and say Ford. It had to be like a look-alike. And they were like, yeah, maybe the fence gaps, though. Let's see here. Wow, Ghost Branch FPV says, after using feed forward for so long now, and having tested many different settings, I turned feed forward off on my most recent build. It feels a million times better. I mean, Ghost Branch, obviously you like what you like, and if you like feed forward off, more power to you. I think feed forward is so important. Number one, feed forward, just from an objective sense, feed forward is a critical way of getting the response time of a PID controller down. Feed forward can anticipate error in a way that P and D can't, and so just objectively, when used correctly, feed forward reduces the error of the system and improves the responsiveness of the system. But more importantly, feed forward lets you tune stick feel in a way that you just can't with PI and D. And I wouldn't give up feed forward personally. I mean, maybe I should try it. But I think if you've got feed forward and you don't like the feel of it, maybe the thing to do is to try playing with feed forward transition, which can change how it comes on. I mean, obviously you know what you like, and if you like what you like, then more power to you, but 661 FPV does not like feed forward. Fair enough. Ian F thinks F.Port is coming to FrSky. Don't know about that. Squishy7 points out that Spectrum has always prioritized link quality over range. That's a very good point, Squishy, and I agree with you. You've just reminded me of this. When I interviewed, I think his name was John Adams, one of the engineers over at Horizon Hobby who helped develop the original Spectrum system. He actually pointed this out, that Spectrum focuses on link quality, low latency, low packet loss, and they will risk a failsafe to keep that going. With FPV pilots trying to push range through obstacles, Spectrum wasn't a good fit. That's a very good point. Ghost Branch says, feed forward feels similar to mouse cursor acceleration on Windows. You're right, Ghost Branch. There's an analogy there. If you want a perfectly linear and predictable stick response, turning feed forward off may help. But I think the goal should be to get the quad to respond to the set point. And when feed forward helps that happen, I think it's more linear. Yeah. Omega Development says, Joshua, why are you wearing headphones? To listen to your own voice? Well, it is true. I can flip a little switch down here, and I can hear my own voice in my ears. So I can check. It lets me monitor the live stream, and also if I play a video, I can hear the video without you guys hearing the video in my in my microphone. Mr. Shady says, yeah, because a failsafe is better than low latency. The thing is, Mr. Shady, if you, pardon me, if you know about how far you can go before you failsafe, like with an airplane, you just won't do that. You just won't go to the point where you failsafe. And you can go a lot further in a typical fixed wing style flight environment where there's no obstacles. Whereas FPV pilots push range and a lot further. Will's Gledhill, thank you for 0.79 pounds. Thank you very much. John Solo points out that Spectrum receivers were kind of a mess. Yeah, Spectrum receivers, originally pilots used satellite receivers, which were not designed to be used on their own. Hooking them up to the flight controller and binding them was a massive pain in the ass. Now, thank God, we finally have the Spectrum 4650 receiver, which has a bind button. Wow, Spectrum, well done. It only took you 7 years to figure out what a bind button is. Good job, Spectrum. But back in the day, Spectrum receivers, actually, credit to Spectrum. Back in the day, pilots flying Spectrum satellite receivers had a much faster serial link than the rest of us flying FrSky PPM receivers. They knew it. I don't think a lot of people knew that. They had much worse range and they fail-safed all the time, but they did have way better latency. T. Simon is asking about Betaflight 4.2. Yeah, actually, news of the day. Betaflight 4.2 is released, hasn't it? I think I saw that. It's like release, not just release candidate. It's out. Yes, it's out. I have a very, very exciting tuning series that I recorded last week where I tuned my iFlight Sedora SL5E to, I just was like, F it, and tuned it within an inch of its life. And I fully expect that you're going to look at the footage and think it flies like crap. Because whenever I tune the crap out of something, then the high-def footage just looks terrible. I don't know. We'll have to see. But that is coming soon. Let's look at the footage and let's see how it looks. This is me tuning the iFlight Sedora to within an inch of its life on Betaflight 4.2. Release candidate, technically. Now, let's see. Let's see here. You don't need to hear me singing. How's it look? I probably just crash, so... Fair enough. Let's see. How good does Betaflight 4.2 fly when Joshua Bardwell tunes it? As good as he possibly can. Let me turn the, no. What are you doing? I want to unmute this. There we go. That was wrong. Hang on. Right. All right, here we go. Moment of truth. Too loud. Turn it down. Like, I'm not sure how well this is going to show off the tune. I mean, I think that's pretty good. I think that's pretty good. We got any, like, mid-throttle oscillations or anything? The prop wash oscillation is pretty good. Oh, and then I flew right into this wire. Oh, well. Did I get up? Oh, look at me. Yeah, I do have a tune for this. It's going to be in the video. This is 4S. Oh, yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, I don't know. That was pretty good. I'm trying to... This is the one I opened the video with. You can hear the motors, though. Little prop wash there. Little instability in the motors there. I'm letting you guys hear the motors so you can... Because I think you can tell a lot about the tune by listening to the motors. Little instability there. Did you hear the motors kind of go doom doom when I popped up? Listen. Not here. Right here. Little prop watch, little instability there. Honestly, that's not bad. I'm not too sad about that. Wait till you guys see what the PIDs are, though. The PIDs are insane. I don't know. Seems to fly okay. I'll be happy to share those PIDs with you. If you've got a Sidora SL5E, I'm happy to share those PIDs with you. Just know that if you put them on there and your quad flies to the moon and lights your motors on fire, that's your fault, not mine. Dave's FPV, why is it a thing in this community to keep your tune private? It annoys me. We should all be helping each other out. Dave, I don't keep my tunes private like they're a secret. At the same time, like for a ready to fly quad like the Sidora, it's like, well, you have the exact same quad I do, so it makes sense that my PIDs would probably work okay for you. But a lot of people will like just take somebody's PIDs. I'm like, I downloaded Ladrib's PIDs from the Rotor Riot store and I put them on my quad. Well, if you're not flying his quad, you can't fly his PIDs, and they may fly worse, they may fly better, they may make your quad fly to the moon or light your motors on fire. You can't just copy somebody's PIDs. So I don't share my PIDs in general because I don't think they're helpful for you unless you're flying my exact quad, in which case I'm happy to share them. What GoPro? That was the Hero 5 Session. Hero 5 Session. Bastian Sonderman asks, how do you connect smart audio together with a microphone on the TBS Unify? Bastian, if you have one of the older Unifies that only has an audio wire, I don't recommend you use audio and smart audio together because they often will interfere. If you have one of the newer quads that has both a smart audio, or not quads, one of the newer Unifies that has both a smart audio and an audio wire, then obviously just run the microphone to one and the smart audio to the other. If you really care about audio, Rush, Underground FPV, there's a Rush tiny microphone that has automatic gain control, which does the best job of managing wind noise compared to other things. It's also not a bad idea to just get a video transmitter with a built-in microphone so you just don't have to deal with that nonsense. John Larson Thank you for $5 in the super chat. Have you tested the Vaz Crossfire Pro antenna? Happy 3 packs a day. Thank you, John. I have not tested that antenna, so don't have a lot to say about it. Vaz antennas generally are pretty freaking good, but you have to make sure you're getting the right antenna for the application. Everybody's looking for my PIDs for the SL5E. Okay. How am I going to give them to? I know how to give them to you. Hang on. Here's what I'm going to do. Hang on. This right here is my Pastebin. Pastebin is a website where you can upload text files and code snippets, and I have been building a database of quadcopter config files. So let me just make a new one here. There you go. And hang on. This is the Betaflight default config dump. Let me just copy this nonsense. Always put a plug for yourself at the top of everything. Hang on. There we go. See, disclaimer made. And then we'll just go down here. No, I need a name. Okay. Boom, 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 boom. They always make you do this if you're not a paid member. There we go. So there it is. I'll paste it in the chat. If you have a... Now this is Betaflight 4.2. You're going to have to flash Betaflight 4.2. If you have an iFlight Sedora SL5E, you can take those. If you try to put them on a different quad, I cannot guarantee you results. You could probably try it on this SL5, maybe. But, yeah. Why use Pastebin over GitHub, asks Tannard. Tanner, GitHub, I don't know how to use GitHub. GitHub is it's its own thing. You fork and you pull and you merge and GitHub is the right tool to use, but I don't know how to freaking use it and I can't be arsed to learn it. So Pastebin it is. Carlos D says, would these PIDs work on a diatone F.Port? Carlos, that question doesn't make sense. I don't mean to be insulting to you, but that question doesn't make sense because you asked me, will these PIDs work on a certain flight controller? You haven't told me anything about your quad, your frame, your motors. PIDs relate to the power system and the weight of the quad primarily. So if you have a quad that weighs 700 grams, it's a 220 millimeter wheelbase, and it's got 2306, 2450 kV motors with a certain prop. Chances are that if you have another frame with those same specs, the PIDs will be similar. Not guaranteed, but chances are. But if you tell me what flight controller you've got, that doesn't tell me anything about what I need to know. The PIDs in almost no way relate to the flight controller. The only way the PIDs relate to the flight controller is that some flight controllers have better gyros and they can take less filtering than others. So the filters may relate to the flight controller, but the PIDs, you really don't copy PIDs unless you're using the same quad. Now that's why when I release this video, it will contain all of the steps I took to get where I got. And you'll see the quad was doing this thing, and then I changed this PID. So hopefully you could maybe learn to follow along. But Gabe says, to the person who previously asked if they could slow down a simulator, I can confirm that Cheat Engine works with Velocidrone. Gabe used Cheat Engine to slow Velocidrone down. So you can do that. I don't remember who that was, but much earlier. Peak Ascender says you can create and edit files with your browser on GitHub. No need to install Git. Yeah, that okay, I guess, but then how people downloading the files is a pain. I don't know. I'm just like, Pastebin makes sense to me. Would GitHub? Would GitHub be better? Why would GitHub be better? That's my question. It's probably better. Ziggy Mike, these are the 2450 motors on the Sedora. The 1800 motors may not work quite the same because that's slightly higher RPM. Nono FPV says, hey Joshua, I have an Eachine X140 HV, and 2 days ago I tried to change the firmware to Betaflight 4.2, and now the motors aren't spinning when I try to fly it. The first mistake that people often make, Nono FPV, is to use the wrong target. When they flash it. So when you flash it, if you have a config dump, like is it the Maytech F411 target, after you flashed it, did you apply custom defaults? Those are some things, but then you flashed it, so now you got to rebuild the configuration. So you just may not have your flight controller set up right. Squishy7 in the Discord says, personally, I feel that the polarizing nature of feedforward is not due to feedforward, but because we've been exposed to just how dirty our RC signals have been. The number one thing to remember is that feedforward is basically like an anti-D-term. Another way to put that is, that's a good way to put it. It reacts off the RC signal just like D-term is super sensitive to noise in the gyro. Feedforward is super sensitive to noise in the RC signal. Starting with Betaflight 4.0, feedforward took more of a driver's seat in the PID controller, which I believe is what caused such a split in the community regarding the flight feel of modern Betaflight. What we should be doing is pushing for better ways to filter RC signals and cleaner RC signals in general. Squishy, I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. The Betaflight devs said feedforward is a good way to cause the PID error to get lower, and it exposed the fact that we have really dirty RC signals, and then it kind of flew worse, unless you had a clean RC signal. But the next thing we see happening is that Crossfire Shot comes out, which cleans up the RC signal, and so I think it's moving us in a positive direction. This may be a reason why, this is going to be controversial for me to say, this may be a reason why Betaflight sometimes is seen as like being worse. Like Betaflight devs push into a direction that objectively makes things better, but in the big picture, in a very small way, in a very focused sense, this one thing got better, but then it made the big picture worse. But isn't that like kind of the point of Betaflight, is to be pushing and to be just trying to do these things? And then, like, 3 versions from now, we'll be doing, when does, the real question is, when does it, like, just fly good? I mean, some people fly Betaflight and they're like, oh, it just flies so good. But a lot of times Betaflight has some new feature in it that maybe could make things better, but maybe, like, I just had a problem with this Sedora trying to get dynamic idle. I started with dynamic idle turned on, and I was having a lot of instability at low throttle. And I did everything I could think of to fix the instability at low throttle. And then I finally turned dynamic idle off, and it suddenly went away. And I was like, oh, well, F me. This new awesome feature that's supposed to have all these advantages was screwing me up. Meanwhile, we've got things like KISS and Flight 1. And that's not to say that they are not also being innovative, but I think that KISS and Flight 1 are more focused on the end user experience. Maybe that's because they're closed source and they actually have customers who pay money. I guess closed source and commercial are not the same thing. I don't mean to conflate those. But KISS and Flight 1 are companies who have customers who pay them money, and if they piss them off, they will stop paying them money, and then they'll go out of business. The Betaflight devs, they work ostensibly for free. I mean, I'm sure they make money on the side in various ways, but when you buy a Betaflight flight controller, Bruce Luck or Mike Keller don't get any money. That goes all straight to the vendor who made the flight controller. So they just do whatever the F they want. And if they're like, ooh, feed forward makes the PID controller makes PID errors smaller. Okay, they just stick it in there. And if you don't like it, I mean, on some level, you haven't paid for the right to complain. Not saying it's good or bad. Those are rubber bands. I don't really need to eat those. Russell Smith asks, am I losing flight performance if I go with an F4 instead of an F7? Russell Smith, mostly no. The big thing that F7s can do today is they can run RPM filtering without really taking a performance hit, whereas F4 flight controllers, if you want to run RPM filtering, you have to lower the PID rate from like 8K to 4K. I don't think most people would ever notice the difference, but technically F7 does have an advantage there. Ghost Branch FPV asks, what did I mean by Betaflight devs are making money on the side? No, and by the way, I'm not saying that they are or they aren't. I'm just saying in general, when you've got an open source project like that, somebody like FrSky might come along and say, we need a new feature implemented and who knows the code better than you? And then the dev goes, well, I'm not doing it for free because why should you make money and I have to starve? So the vendor will pay the dev to implement the feature or work on something, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Toady RZ asks, I'm not sure you're talking to me, Toady, asks, how the F could you censor yourself? How do you do that? Well, number one, I have kids. And number two, I've been on YouTube for a long time. And the more you're on YouTube, I mean, if you're a bot grinder, then you just say whatever you're going to say. But once upon a time, I got a letter from a parent who said, I let my kids watch your videos and I don't really monitor them when they're watching your videos. But you said, some swear words. And then I was kind of like, no hard feelings. But if you're going to swear a lot, then I'm not going to let my kids watch your videos. And I was like, oh, well, I want kids to watch my videos. Kids need to be in the hobby. So I kind of make sure I try to keep it clean most of the time. Don't want to get demonetized. Ooh, Danny Fain. Good question. Danny Fain. Mr. Steele's latest How to FPV video on rates says that the speed of rotation on the quad depends on the size of the quad. If you have a certain rate set in your quad, how does the size of the quad affect that? Very good question. Let's talk about that. The rate of the quad is set in degrees per second. So if you've got a DPS of 1,000 DPS and you deflect the stick all the way, what happens? The quad will accelerate until it reaches 1,000 degrees per second, and then it will stay there. Now let's think about how that's different on a little quad versus a big quad. And we're going to use the biggest quad I can think of, the FreeFly Alta X, which has like 36-inch props. It's a giant cinema drone. Let's imagine that we took a FreeFly Alta X up to 1,000 feet, 500 feet, because we don't want to crash this thing. It costs $15,000. Let's say that we set the rotational rate to 1,000 degrees per second, and we went full stick. 1,000 degrees per second is approximately 3 turns per second. What's going to happen? Presumably it's going to get there. Like, presumably it can spin 1,000 degrees per second. But it's going to take a minute to get there. When the moment you deflect the stick and the motors go, it's a great big honking thing. And because it has mass, it has inertia, and it has a rotational moment. That's a phrase. I don't really even know what it means, but it sounds good. it's going to take a minute to accelerate up to 1,000 degrees per second, and then it'll stay at 1,000 degrees per second until you recenter the stick. And it will slow down when you recenter the stick, but it'll slow down slowly. On the other hand, if you've got a smaller quadcopter that you want to rotate 1,000 degrees per second, when you deflect the stick, it will accelerate to 1,000 degrees per second a lot faster. It will reach the target speed faster. So now let's think about the scenario where we're going to do a single flip or a single roll. If I try to make that big FreeFly Alta X do 1,000 degrees per second, it's probably not even going to hit 1,000 degrees per second in one full turn. Like, I don't know, I'm just guessing. It'll accelerate, and it'll still be getting up around 700-800 degrees per second by the time you start recentering the stick, and then it'll slow down and it'll stop. So the average speed of a larger quad doing a single roll is slower than the average speed of a smaller quad doing a single roll or flip, because the larger quad reaches the target speed slower, or maybe in an extreme case doesn't reach the target speed at all. So Steele is right when he says that a larger quad rotates slower on average. On average. Given enough time and a sufficiently powerful motor, the PID controller will reach the target speed regardless of the size of the quad. But since we're not just holding the stick over and going zzz, 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 the PID controller only has so much time to get up to the target speed, and that's why larger quads rotate slower. So here's the takeaway for this, Danny Fay. The takeaway for this is that if you have a different size quad and you're doing moves that depend heavily on muscle memory, like Rubik's Cubes, the size of the quad will affect the timing of your fingers on the Rubik's Cube, even though the rotational rate may be the same. The rates may be the same between them. There are various ways to fix this. One way to fix this is feed forward. Feed forward is specifically designed to help accelerate the physical system in anticipation of this delay. And with enough feed forward, maybe you could get a larger quad to have the same stick timing as a smaller quad. But I think what Steele might be saying, and I don't mean to put words in his mouth, but now I'm going to put words in his mouth. What he might be saying is that larger quads need different stick timing. They need slower stick timing to get clean, like Rubik's Cubes, compared to smaller quads. Or you could raise or lower the rates, but I would rather mess with feed forward than changing the rates. Andrew Young says, rates are a theoretical maximum speed, just like KV is a theoretical maximum speed. I see what you're getting there, Andrew Young. The difference is that a motor will never make its true KV RPM when it's got a prop on, because it'll always be loaded down. So a motor with a prop on it will never hit its KV RPM, KV times voltage. Whereas a quadcopter will easily hit 900 degrees per second in a flipper roll. It's just how fast does it get there? How much of the flipper roll does it waste accelerating and decelerating? Juzel in the Discord asks, isn't rotational acceleration based on thrust to weight rather than size? Or are you saying that generally larger quads have lower thrust to weight? Juzel, this is a question that is going to open a giant can of worms that I'm not going to even dive into. But the question is that when a motor is further away from the center of mass, it has more torque due to a longer lever arm, but it also has a longer distance to go through. So even though it has more torque and can theoretically accelerate faster because of the torque, it also has a longer distance to go through. Ryan Harrell of MiniQuad Test Bench crunched some numbers, and he concluded that those two effects more or less cancel each other out. The difference that so a quadcopter of the same mass with longer arms will accelerate about the same as a quadcopter of the same mass with shorter arms, as long as the thrust to weight is the same. However, the reason I think that larger quads rotate slower is just that they are more massive, And generally, when you get to these bigger, a little quad, like a 5-inch quad, it is easy to build it with like a 12-to-1, a 15-to-1 thrust to weight ratio. They just have insane power to weight ratios. When you get up to these bigger quads, they don't have the same insane power to weight ratio, and so they just can't overcome their own mass as aggressively. That's what I say. Robert Rempel says, what's the point? What's the point of having your rates faster than the quad can respond? Well, Robert Rempel, most quads will hit the maximum degrees per second during a flipper roll. And the higher the rate, the faster the quad will accelerate because the PID error will accumulate more faster. So if you bump to full stick and your rate is 1500 degrees per second, there will be more PID error and the PID controller will respond stronger than if you go to full stick and your rates are 900 degrees per second. So faster rates make the quad spin faster. Shocker. There is a point where you're asking the quad to spin faster than it physically can, but our gyros max out at 2000 degrees per second, and I guarantee you most 5-inch freestyle and racing quads can spin 2000 degrees per second if they want to. If you don't believe me, put your props on wrong someday and turn off runaway protection. And the quad will just go zzz, and you go, oh, it can spin pretty fast. Anyway. T1 Letty asks, can you try to respond to FPV-related emails by the end of the week? T1 Letty, I respond to my emails twice a day, typically. Once in the morning and once in the evening before I go to bed. I clear my inbox. So if you send me an email, today I haven't gotten to them because I was working on a video and now I have a live stream. But if you sent me an email like last week, then I haven't gotten to it, then I'll probably get to it tomorrow. But why didn't I get to it on Friday or Wednesday? I clear my emails almost every day. Chris Tuttle, thank you for $5 in the super chat. When you get a new radio, what kind of tension adjustments do you make on your sticks? Chris, I have a certain tension that I like on the sticks, and I don't know how to tell you what that is, except that I just feel it. I don't like my sticks super loose because I feel like super loose sticks results in clean transitions across the center with no little stop and stutter in the center. But super loose sticks, like, here's a great example of why super loose sticks are bad. When you punch the throttle to go into a snap move, like a juicy flick, if the stick is super loose, you'll accidentally yaw just a little bit. And you'll see it in the black box, but you won't notice it while you're flying, except your moves will kind of be off. So I like enough tension that I'm not accidentally deflecting the move when I do snap moves, but not so much. Some pilots, especially racing pilots, I think, seem to fly with much higher stick tension. The advantage of high stick tension is that when you deflect the stick, it stays exactly where you want it. You don't make little micro moves. But coming through the center with high stick tension, you get a little bit of a da. And if you're doing freestyle moves where you're kind of going with high stick tension, what you get is and there's this just little stutter as you come through the center that you really don't want. So Robert Rempel, I would say I agree. Chris Tuttle, to answer your question, I like the stick tension just high enough that I don't deflect the move when I do snap throttle or snap pitch or roll moves. I don't deflect the stick, but no tighter than that. Alex W, thank you for $5.55 in the super chat. Hey, from Knoxville. I live in Knoxville. My quad's broken. Yeah, I have some broken quads. I can't find motor screws that are long enough to hold them on, but not so long that they touch the windings. No problem. Alex W., there's two solutions to this. Number one is just take a Dremel tool or a bolt cutter and cut the bolts off. Don't Dremel the bolts near the motors because the motor magnets will suck the motor shavings up into them, and that'll be bad. Or get some washers. Buy some M3 washers. The M3 washers are about 0.5 millimeter thick. And so just put 1 or 2 M3 washers on the bolts that you've got, and that'll bring them back down to the length you need. That's what I usually do. I usually can't be bothered to cut off 16 bolts I just put washers on. BVTV, thank you for $2 in the super chat. HDO2 or DJI analog mod? I should charge you a lot more than $2 to answer this question because it's such a freaking troublesome question. That's no matter how I answer it, somebody's going to be mad at me. But it is what it is. BVTV, I think it depends on what you fly. The person who's going to be, let's be straight, HDO2 with OLED screens is a better looking image than the DJI analog mod with an LCD screen. It's an LCD screen, I'm pretty sure. I think it's LCD. It looks better. OLED is amazing. OLED is just, it's awesome. So if you have like all analog quads, then get the HDO2s. But by the time you spend $500 on HDO2s plus $150 on a rapid fire, I think you gotta ask if DJI would be a better way to spend your money. Because DJI is, I mean, yes, Fat Shark Bite Frost digital HD system is, where is it? It was supposed to come and then it didn't come, and there have been some leaked videos on YouTube, but okay, so many people fly DJI and are just like, I'm never looking at analog ever again. Get that trash off my face. And you've seen it too. Like a year ago, 6 months ago, when did DJI come out? 6 months ago, I would have said that, and a whole bunch of you would have been like, oh, they're good, Bardwell. But you've seen it too. I know, because I see your comments in my videos. More people are trying it. More people are seeing other people who have it. And you know I'm not making it up. So before you spend $500 on HDO2s, you got to at least, like, if you can, put some DJIs on your face. And that may just make the decision for you. But some people are not going to be able to afford DJI. Some people are not going to be able to afford to put an air unit in all their quads. Some people fly just micros and DJI just isn't an option. If you're one of those people, then the HDO2s are a superior analog goggle. William Barlow, thank you for $5 in the super chat. I landed my Beta 85 and now there's no lights on the flight controller and the last two beeps don't come. I'm sorry, William, for laughing at your pain. What did I do? Is the flight controller toast? Yes, I'm sorry, William, but the flight controller is toast. I mean, obviously, like, we could dig into this, like CSI forensics, and maybe we'd find that there was a wire loose or something. Like, check it for physical damage, but in general, when there's no lights on the flight controller and the last two beeps don't come, the flight controller's toast. What did you do? I mean, I'm sorry to say that in this hobby, stuff just breaks. Like, the build quality of our electronics is not super high to begin with. It's not like we're making, like, you know, Sony televisions that live in your grandpa's basement for 30 years and still work. They're just banging this stuff out of China at the lowest possible price to maximize profit and get this stuff in your hand, and hopefully you're happy with it. I know that there are some companies that are exceptions to this, but in general, that is how most of this stuff is made. And then we take this cheap stuff, which isn't built too great to begin with, and we smash it into the ground at 60 miles an hour or faster, and then eventually it breaks. So you probably didn't do anything wrong. It's just the way of things, and I'm sorry to say. All you have to do, what you have to do is you have to just convince yourself whether it's worth buying the same product again or whether you're never buying another product from this company ever again. That's what people do. They buy let's not pick on Beta FPV since they're actually the one we're talking about. You buy a Mobula 6, you fly it, 3 days later you crash it and it breaks. You go, oh, I might just buy another one and let's see what happens. And then a month later it breaks. And you go, well, I'm never buying Mobula again. Screw them. And then you buy a Beta FPV, and maybe you have better luck with it, or maybe it does the same thing to you. And that's just how it is. Oh, hey, 661 FPV is actually being helpful. Wow. Okay, well, kudos, 661 FPV. I owe you a $5 super chat. 661 FPV says this is a common problem. The pins between the stacks loosen up. What's the fix though, 661 FPV? Because I agree, if you've got a pinned flight controller, those pins, they do loosen up over time. But what's the fix? Can you like direct solder it? I don't know. I mean, if the pins have loosened up, maybe the flight controller's fine, but how is he going to fix it? I'll wait for you to get back to me, and I'll have that super chat in the mail to you as soon as I get down to the post office. Zip tie them together, says 661 FPV. Okay, William Barlow, if you can try just wiggling the flight controller and see if that brings it back to life, maybe you could like rubber band it or something such that the pins make contact. Slobber Knocker, yes, my DJI Air unit did survive after I let the fire out of it. That fire actually came from the frame. It was shorting to the frame, so it was actually okay. Oh, 661 FPV. Everybody knows the Beta FPV 75X has pins. Well, this is the 85, so sounds so smart, mister. Everybody knows. Everybody knows everything. Maybe I shouldn't have named myself the FPV know-it-all if I didn't want people to be up my butt when I don't know things. It's a curse. It's a curse. Guthrie Glasgow wants to know, is an F1 chip going to fly worse, or is it just going to have less features? I have a Naze 32 clone. I know it's ancient, but I'm curious how disadvantaged it is. Guthrie Glasgow, the truth is that you're going to have trouble finding a firmware to be able to flash to the Naze 32. You have to go so far back to find a Betaflight version that actually can flash to it. Now, you can do it. Is it going to fly worse? I mean, to some degree, modern hardware has gotten so good that even on a crappy flight controller, it flies okay. But the flip side is that the flight controller, the PID controller in that old code is designed to work with old hardware. I first discovered this when someone was trying to use a modern flight controller with old ESCs. And the quad was just going woo, 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 woo. And I was like, why? I used to fly those ESCs. I mean, they didn't fly great, but they flew. They could hover. And what I concluded is that the PID controller expects a certain amount of responsiveness from the ESCs, and back then it didn't, because they couldn't do it. And the PID controller just... So I think those older flight controllers, they can fly on modern hardware, but frankly, it's going to be so much of a struggle. Like, what is a new flight controller really going to cost you? Do you have to use that F1? I would put that Naze, on a shelf, put it in a frame, put it on your key ring, use it as a souvenir, and I probably would try not to fly it. But it can fly okay, but not as good as... You're not just missing features. The flight controllers have gotten... The PID controllers have gotten so much better in terms of filtering. That's one of the main ways they've gotten better. And it's going to fly worse. Sometimes people reach out to me and they're like, well, I've got this. There was a guy, I think it was on Reddit. And I answered this question. He said, I got this quadcopter I found in my attic. I bought it 3 years ago, left it in the attic and forgot about it. And, how do I get it running? And it's like a open CC3D flight controller with 2203 motors and Simon K ESCs. And I was like, just don't fly. It just does not. It's going to be a nightmare to get it flying, and then it's going to fly like crap, and then it's going to die, and you won't be able to get replacement parts. Just don't. Cue all the people who still fly Naze 32s in the comments. Yeah, I hear you. When will the TX16S be in stock? Sheldon, right now, if you want a product really badly, you should just put a pre-order in. Everything is so effed up right now because of coronavirus and just the world. And you're like, when will stock be back? No one knows. If you really want a Radio Master TX16S, pick your favorite store, put a pre-order in, and cross your fingers. Because the days when, because here's what's going to happen. A store is going to get stock. The word is going to go out. They're going to sell out, and you're going to miss it. So, like, stock levels have never been great in FPV, and now with the whole coronavirus thing, they're really not great. So, just time to get comfortable with back orders and pre-orders. That's what I say. Maniac. Oh no, hang on. Chris Tuttle, thank you for $2. Your new YouTube endings keep viewers till the end. Yes. I have to say, I was inspired by Jim Gaffigan. Jim Gaffigan is a comedian. Many of you probably know who he is because he's a very popular comedian. His YouTube channel I've been watching, and the endings to his videos were so funny. I was like, let's try and make the endings to my videos entertaining like he does. I'm no Jim Gaffigan, but I do my best. Maniac Stew, thank you for $5 in the super chat. I'm trying to pick an affordable 6S battery. Any recommendations? I've heard CNHL and other packs on Amazon can be hit or miss. I think CNHL is great value. If you're in the United States, Race Day Quads and Lumineer Xylo brand are good. Should I just get R lines? I actually don't recommend. Sorry, Tattoo. Some sales manager at Tattoo is about to be mad at me. I don't recommend Tattoo R lines for beginners. Tattoo has a Tattoo doesn't even recommend R lines for beginners. They have a Fun Fly series. I haven't tested them to know whether they're good or bad, but R lines are that's like asking whether you should put racing slicks on your car when you go to the grocery store. Do you know what I mean? Are you car enough to understand the reference? Some people might not be. Like, they are extremely high performance racing tires. They are extremely expensive and they wear out really quickly. You wouldn't use racing slicks to go to the grocery store, and you shouldn't use R lines if you're just a basher. R lines are very high performance, but they're a little fragile. If you over discharge them or something, they can drop a cell pretty easily. Racers like them because they don't give a crap and they just need to go fast. But for a typical person, yeah. Do you recommend the Source One for a first frame? Asks Small in the YouTube. Yeah, the Source One, here's the thing. The TBS Source One, it's not like an exceptional frame in terms of its weight. It's durable, it's a great basher, and you can get them for like $25. So, like, yeah, what more do you want? For a first frame, TBS Source One is a great choice, especially because of its low price. Peter Martinez, thank you for $5 in the super chat. The last video on DJI has me sold. Placed an order today, but you're right. Goggles, sponge padding, Caddx Vista analog mod, $780. Yeah, I mean, no, that's the number one reason to not buy DJI is the price. Like, I haven't really been like misleading about that. I hope it's expensive. So the first question you have to ask yourself is, can I afford it? And then if the answer is yes, ask yourself like 5 more questions. And then if the answer is still yes, buy it and don't look back. Ian F says GNB packs are good. Absolutely. In fact, many people believe that Race Day Quads are just rebranded GNB packs. Obsidia wants to know if the new Bardwell F7 will also work with iNav. For the time being, the answer to that is no. Obsidia, the Bardwell F7 doesn't have a barometer on board. However, if there's interest and demand for an iNav target, it probably would be feasible to put a barometer on board, but we haven't done that, mostly because I just don't think about iNav very much. So when I spec'd the board, I just didn't think to ask for it. That's the truth. Huh. Is all DJI stuff pre-order right now? Mike Bergman, I heard that Pyrodrone had stock of DJI a little while ago. They may be sold out now. I don't know. Pistol 100, thank you for $5 in the super chat. Why does DJI advertise 4 kilometers in the FPV system when the practical range is around 1,000 feet or so on 1 watt? Pistol, I can't speak to your system. I know more than one person who's gone between 4 and 5 kilometers on the DJI system without special gear. I'm not saying everybody can do that, but it can be done. However, let's not kid ourselves. Everybody, if you don't know this, you should know that those range estimates are extremely optimistic. They are best case estimates. So when DJI says the range is 4 kilometers, yeah, 4 kilometers in the desert at 1,000 feet, you know, whatever the assumptions are, that's a best case estimate. Now, if you're only getting 1,000 feet practically, I mean, a lot of things can reduce that. Antenna mounting can reduce that. Obstacles. Obviously, if you start adding obstacles, that 4 kilometers range is going to go down. I mean, that just goes without saying. So, yeah, you shouldn't assume that when they say 4 kilometers of range that you're just going to, you know, plunk it down and fly 4 kilometers and get away with it. That's RF. That's how it works. Can TX and RX pads be remapped through the CLI, asks Dav. Dav, oftentimes you cannot remap UART pads. Sometimes you can. So that's very helpful. Good answer, Joshua. If you want to like put soft serial on a UART TX pad, many times you can do it. What you can't do is take TX5 and remap it to TX3. That you cannot do ever, I think. I'm pretty sure. Many times you can remap a UART to something else, but never can you remap a UART to a different UART. Redbeard the pilot. Yes, the SCL SDA pins are broken out on my flight controller, so you could use an I2C barometer. Well, I mean, I guess, but we'd still need an iFlight target for it. That'll be tricky. Austin AME in the Discord wants to know, how can I set the motors to not spin? I don't think you can tie... Austin, here's what you would do, Austin. You need to turn motors... You need to turn air mode off, and you need to turn motor stop on. Gracious sakes. Sorry, guys. And then, as long as air mode is off and motor stop is on, the motors will not spin. So then you're going to have air mode in the modes tab turn on at various times, and that will let you control when the motors do and don't spin. Did I get my T18 yet? Asks Brian Flores. Yep, and in fact, I just finished recording the video today. So the T18 review is coming out this week. Let's see here. Dave's FPV, interesting question. If you have set a rate profile, and then I set a motor cap at 93% and another at 85%, those two rate profiles feel drastically different. I need to raise center stick sensitivity at lower kV to match the feel. Interesting. I mean, like I talked about before, the perceived speed of the quad's rotation is going to be affected by its power of its motors. So if you reduce the motor power, the quad will seem to spin slower because it will take longer to get up to speed when you deflect the stick. So I think what you're saying is normal, Daves, but I'm not 100% sure I understand what you're describing. Victor P wants to know, could I elaborate on good combinations of motor size, KV, and prop size? Victor, the best thing to do is to pay attention to what motors and props other people who are doing similar flight styles as you are using, and then just start to sort of build a mental database. You'll find, for example, that 2306 and 2207 motors are very common for 5-inch quads. If you look down in the 3-inch size, you'll see people using motors maybe as small as like a 1406 up through maybe a 1507 or even a 1408. You just start looking at what other people are using. A great thing to do is to look at ready-to-fly quads and see what vendors are using. Although sometimes vendors will use a really outlandish motor just to try to make a point, usually too big of a motor. But in general, if you look at ready-to-flies, you'll find that stuff that is working, You can also look at the rotorbuilds.com website, which catalogs people's builds, and see what they're using. And that can start to get you a sense on what works. Understanding why it works is a bit of a harder proposition, but just mimicking what other people are doing that seems to work is a great place to start. Alex W. Thank you for $5 in the super chat. Alex, do you ever meet up and fly with people that live close by? I mean, the guys here at Knoxville get out and fly many weekends, and sometimes I come out. I haven't come out lately. I just went to a race in Clarksville, Tennessee. The Chicken and Rippin' race was this weekend, and I went out and hung out for a while. So I make it out every so often. But you say we're in the same town, and the community is small. Well, I have to disagree with you about that. Knoxville has a thriving FPV community. You may just not have met them. Join the Knoxville FPV Racing Facebook group, and you probably will find more people than you know are out there. Cody R wants to know, these are the what are they? The ATH M40X. Oh my goodness. I'm getting all snuffly. Hang on. Okay, good. You know, you don't miss that. I don't know why I'm getting snuffly, but there you go. Probably coronavirus. I went to a race this weekend. Coronavirus. I did stay away, for the record, I stayed away from everybody. I maintained social distancing at the race for the most part. You're outdoors and you're social distancing, I feel like that's probably not as big a risk. Anyway. Let's see. What are we talking about? What ESCs are you guys talking about? I don't know. Okay, well. My Zakir Shaikh. My MMCX connector got broken and is stuck inside my VTX. How could I get it out? Oh, Zakir, that's a pain in the ass, my friend. The chances of getting it out without damaging the MMCX connector are like maybe 50-50. So what some people do is they go in there with a pick. Like you can use a dental pick if you're careful. You can use one of those really pointy tweezers and just cross your fingers and try and pick it out. If it comes down to it, what some people do is desolder the MMCX connector and solder a new one on. In order to do that, you probably are going to need a hot air station, though. You're probably going to not be able to do that with a soldering iron without damaging it. But that's the sort of ultimate fix. This is unfortunately one of the disadvantages of an MMCX connector. When it breaks, it fails pretty badly. Joe Gray says, drill into it, then pull it straight out. Joe, the problem is that the little clip ring that locks in gets left behind. So there's nothing to drill into. The connector itself has come out, but it's left that little cylinder inside. And many attempts to get it out will just damage the MMCX. Sucks. Yeah. Mr. FPS, thanks for $2 Australian. Thank you very much. Another thing that some people say has worked is to solder on a small wire to the part that is stuck and pull it out with the wire. But the problem there is only getting solder onto the one part that you want to get it onto. And that's not likely to do it. The people I know who have had the most success have been people who picked it out with a little pointy tweezers or like a dental pick. But that doesn't work. Like I said, that's like a 50% odds of working. A few people have resoldered them, and that works 100% of the time, but you have to have a hot air station and know how to do surface mount soldering. Nicholas Shavasu says, my iFlight Green Hornet with 1408 motors screams in pain with a GoPro 8 on it Any advice to help it lifting the GoPro? Nicholas, I suppose you could try to go to higher pitch props to make more thrust. There's not a lot of to do other than just change props or change motors. But the problem is that the weight of the quad is just going to go up as you try to add power. Are you on a heavy battery? If you're flying a GoPro 8 and like a 1500 milliamp hour 4S, don't do that. Fly the 850 milliamp hour 4S and get the weight down. That's a thought. Jack Lenoir, why do you want the folding dowel props to be a gimmick? Why do you think it won't be able to catch on? Jack, you're talking about my June product roundup video. What I meant when I said that was I don't like want them to fail. That's not what I meant. I was like, when I first saw the dowel folding props, my gut reaction was, ooh, this is weird. I don't like it. That's a personal problem. It doesn't reflect on the product. So when I said I kind of want those to be a gimmick, it's just because, like I said in the video, like if they're not a gimmick, then I'm gonna have to think about where they fit, and I'm gonna be annoyed. But it doesn't reflect on the product; it just reflects on me. Yeah. John Reed is waiting for me to tell him to buy the analog adapter or not. Unfortunately, I haven't seen John Reed's previous messages, so I don't know what he is actually referring to. What are you referring to, John Reed? John Reed. I want to know, too. Where's it? Any news on the DJI adapter you showed in the last live stream? Should I buy it? I did. I got that in the mail. That DJI adapter, I haven't tried it yet, though, but I did get it in the mail, so I can't comment on it. Will I try the folding props? Yes, I actually have some. I haven't tried them yet. They came in the mail, but I haven't tried them yet. Yeah. It's 9:48 p.m. We're coming close to the end of the live stream. John Babowski. John Babowski got super mad at me. Because he had a broken MMCX connector, and he asked what he should do about it. And I said, "This is my version of the story. John I think he'll think it's a fair version." And I said, "Well, you could try to pick it out with a dental pick." And he tried that, and I didn't say the part about has about a 50% rate of success. I've added that part ever since my conversation with John. So he tried with a dental pick, and he screwed up his MMCX connector. And then he was like, this is the pits. And then he spontaneously bought a hot air station, taught himself to do hot air soldering, and then replaced the MMCX connector on his other air units. Amazing. And then he emailed me mad at me, and he was like, why didn't you tell me to use a hot air station? The picking it out with a pick was terrible. I was like, well, I would have got there. Most people aren't going to learn to solder, surface mount solder with a hot air gun to replace their MCX connectors. Congratulations. So ever since then, when someone says, I got my MMCX connector stuck, I say what you heard me say there. So John won't be mad at me anymore. John says, yeah, you could get a hold of him and he'll fix it for you. You were a little bit mad, John. I think you were a little bit mad. But I took it seriously because you can see I've changed how I answer that question, haven't I? I stand by my original answer. Of everybody I know who's gotten an MMCX connector stuck, most people, the people who have had the most success are people who picked it out with like a dental pick or a toothpick, but it's not 100%. Anyway, no hard feelings, John. I'll be giving him your phone number, John. Yeah, DJ Pop says you can get a hot air station for like 60 euros. You can get a hot air station for not too expensive. I mean, it's learning how to do hot air soldering. That's the challenge. Drone Pilot, thanks for $5 Australian. I'm no longer buying FrSky products, says Drone Pilot. I have 2.4 gig and 900 megahertz and will change. What product line do you suggest for tiny whoops to long range? For tiny whoops, Drone Pilot, you have to use, FrSky is the one to use. That's what all the crazy bee boards have the D8 receiver in them, right? I mean, I don't think you're going to easily get away from FrSky for tiny whoops. So you can buy a Radio Master TX16S with a multi-protocol module, and you can bind to the tiny whoops that way, and okay. For 900 megahertz, I mean, what's better than Crossfire, right? That's it, just Crossfire. FrSky R9. Well, you said you're not going to FrSky, so okay. Yeah. It is 9 minutes to the end of the live stream. Aaron Ciotti is in the chat, and Ciotti is going to be streaming at 10 o'clock when I go off the air, and he's over on his channel. What are you doing tonight, Ciotti? He streams after me on Monday nights. What are you doing tonight, Ciotti? T. Simon asks, what are hot air stations used for that a regular soldering gun isn't suitable for? T. Simon, what a hot air station can do is apply high heat over a wide area at the same time. A soldering gun or a soldering iron applies focused heat in one location. But the problem is that if you're trying to like desolder an MMCX connector, you need all the legs to let go at the same time. And then when you solder it down, what you do is you put solder paste on the pads, you set the MMCX connector down, and then you heat it with the hot air gun, and it just whoop, flows all at once. So that's how surface mount soldering works, and it's pretty difficult to do. You can do some surface mount soldering with a soldering iron. Worth pointing out, there is a material called Chip Quick, which is used for desoldering with a soldering iron. It's an alloy that holds the heat and stays liquid longer. But if you need to desolder surface mount components, a hot air station is really the way to do it. Thank you, Ranflin Diaz, for $5. Cheers. Ciotti, Danny Bessinger. Ciotti, he's right above you in the chat, Danny. Ciotti, CIOTTI FPV. He's doing 4 giveaways. Wow. And a 4-inch build. John, you putting your phone number in the chat. That is a risky move, my friend. That's a risky move. Kyle Daniels, thank you for $5 in the super chat. What do you think about the design aspect of the new Fat Shark Bite Frost module? Kyle, I'm not sure what you mean by the design aspect of the new Fat Shark. If you mean the fact that it like sticks to the goggles and hangs off the front of the goggles, I'm not a fan. I mean, I got to be honest. When Fat Shark said they had a module that went in an HDO2 with no modification, I thought, wow, they shrunk it down to the size where it fits inside the head tracker bay. Way to go, Fat Shark. And then I saw they had this gigantic honking thing that sticks off the front of the goggles. And I was like, well, I mean, okay. Like, it could still be good, but I mean, I'm not going to pretend like it's not kind of ugly and clunky. Then again, the DJI goggles are also kind of ugly and clunky, so what do you want? Like, I'm going to have a really hard time when I get the new Shark Bite module from Fat Shark, because I'm going to have to install it on my beloved, beautiful HDO2s. And I'm going to have some regrets about doing that. But I'm going to do it. DJ Pop asks, could I solder all 12 of my motor wires to my 4-in-1 at the same time? I mean, you would have to hold them. You would have to hold it. Oh, no, T. Simon. Sorry. T. Simon asks. I mean, they would all have to be held in place, I guess. That's not the right application for a hot air gun. No, because you would desolder everything else on the ESC. I don't think you were serious, T. Simon. I think you were joking. Yeah. Greg B says, I bought a Nirvana controller from Banggood. Will have a hard time updating OpenTX. Greg B, I have a PDF file. If you will email me, Greg, or direct message me on Discord, I have a PDF file of where to get the latest firmwares. When OpenTX 2.4 comes out, you will be able to update it easily using OpenTX Companion because the Nirvana is supposed to be supported in OpenTX 2.4, but 2.4 has been, just a few months away for like 6 months or a year now. So I can give you the information you need to update the Nirvana controller. I have a PDF with all the links in it. There are unofficial firmwares. Hexy wants to know about my Attitude goggles. I did not paint them. A very, very generous man who works at a paint shop offered to do them for me, and he did. I would never have done such a good job. Yeah. Alrighty, guys. It's 9:57 p.m. We're 3 minutes from the end of the stream. Aaron Ciotti is posting a link to his stream coming soon, coming at 10 o'clock after me. Coming up, if you just want to stay up even later and listen to somebody talk about quads. He's also doing 4 giveaways, so that's kind of cool. On my channel this week, we're going to have a big week on my channel this week because if we check out my editorial calendar, what do we got? Well, we got this Q&A live stream, so let's mark that as complete. That's done. And hopefully tomorrow, the $200 versus $900 quad video will come out. There were some editing issues with that video that delayed. I wanted to get it out last week, but that is coming, and you're going to find out whether the Mr. Steel Alien is better than the $200 iFlight Sedora. Could it possibly not be? Jumper T18 video, I just finished recording that. That's going to be edited and plan to release that on Wednesday. Oh, Cadix Nebula. Yeah. You may have heard in my previous live stream that I got a Cadix Nebula, and long story short, I kind of thought it looked like crap. And Cadix said, "We think yours is broken. Let us send you another one." So they did. That box came. So I'll be releasing my Cadix Nebula. Either it's going to look way better or it's going to look like crap, and I'm going to tell you. And 3 packs a day. Still continuing the 3 packs a day experiment, so we'll be seeing more of that. That'll... Well, we'll figure out what we're going to do with that. Oh, where's my Sedora tuning video going to be? I don't know. But that's coming up on the channel this week, and I hope you will stick around and check it all out. Thank you guys so much for coming out for this live stream. Thank you to all of my patrons here in the Discord. Thank you, Eric Allen. Thank you, Hexy. Thanks to everybody who left super chats, and thanks to all you just normal people in the chat keeping it going. Ooh, wife just walked in, handed me my JB Phoenix 2. Can't wait to try it. Yes. Yes, love it, love it. All right, guys. I'm going to get out of here, and Aaron Ciotti is going to post the link to his stream like 5 more times. We got to check out Ciotti's new intro video. Oh, he's got a new intro. Cool. Ciotti, post that link a few more times. So I'm going to get out of here, and I will see you guys throughout the week, as always. And next Sunday, Father's Day. There's a chance I'll cancel the stream next Sunday for Father's Day. Like I said at the beginning, if my family tries to do something nice for me, then I'm not going to tell them. Sorry, guys, I got to go stream. Alrighty. Happy flying, everybody. Have a great stream, Ciotti. See you guys next time.